It seems to be almost universal rule, if not law, that such persons are forced to walk graveward through swamps and over lanes where every footfall is accompanied with horror and attended by pain. The twin Gorgons, ever hovering about the head of the genius, come into whatever form it may. Most people admire men, women, and the works of genius, but very few know practically sense or realize the fearful price at which the thing called genius and even ordinary mediumship, when genuine, is almost invariably purchased. When a man begins to think and write down earnest, then there is hope for that man. But whoever can and will not think proves himself a fool, a bigot, and an ass. I will reveal to you an arcanum. The school of man is a substance, soft, plastic, yet enduring, and every human experience actually engraves itself upon the substance. And when in life the soul becomes positive to its body and conditions, it can at will read the vivigraphic writing. The human mind is so constructed that it is susceptible of varied influences from every department, from every element, from every principle, from every nook and corner of the boundless and illimitable universe. The great majority of men move on a plane where elemental forces of material nature impinge upon their being and give direction to both thought and action. Consequently, such minds can take cognizance only of their outer nature and the phenomenon still attending them. A small minority of the race have ascended to a higher plane, where idea is first distinctly perceived, and consequently such are moved upon the waves of the mentality flowing from the earth-educated mind. It is the transition point between materialistic mind and the purely spiritual. A small minority of this last-named class become fascinated and influenced by the thoughts which are particularly spiritual and partly mental, and, being dazzled by their brilliancy and power, yield thereto as to the guiding star, and the power being new, they worship it at its shrine. These minds are constantly perceiving dim rays of high truth, but, instead of leaping towards the light, they plunge down to the reservoir of earth-evolved thought, and soon become lost in the mazy labyrinths thereof. Another minority of minds, having passed beyond the entire plane, perceive spiritual light in its purity, and become the subjects or mouthpieces of supermundane and trans-earthly mind. And that which comes to earth through these instrumentalities is invariably harmonious and consistent with itself in the great principles of the nature. Vast and mighty is the human soul. What is the mysterious thing? Where shall mortals look for the dwelling place of the occult principle, whose powers are not limited by time or space? But who shall tell us where it dwelleth? It sendeth forth energies beyond the outer limits of space, and reacheth even into the illimitable vortex of the august soul living God. The human soul hath ever lived. Time never was when it had not a conscious being, conscious only in its inmost essence, ere it fell as a raindrop from the pulsating soul of its Father, God. He, she, it, or deity ever was and ever will be, and the deep depths of God's soul conceived the thought of creating, like unto itself, that which would infinitely represent and correspond to still more infinite oversoul. When it, he, she, or God order life, intellect, law, will, melody, matter, and harmony, conceived this thought, the fiat went forth, and circumvolving spears were convulsed with the tide which rolled over, and laved the shores of boundless realm of infinitude, and forthwith the material realm was ushered into being. I tell thee that matter is but a form of the mind. There are higher and lower degrees of mentality, which, when commingled, constitute that domain known as substance. This material realm, being subject to that superior to itself, gave birth to worlds. The refining processes, acting though illimitable centuries, produced organic material form, stomachs fitted to receive directly the same substances which otherwise would have ultimated themselves into gross matter, digested and refined receptive cells, and man became a living soul. Now, this is the origin. We will now endeavor to discern a portion of the nature, first of God, second of matter, and third of man. In other words, man is a crystallization of the waves of thought which proceed from God, hence never can reach deity, from the reason that the sphere which emanates from God is less refined and perfect than God himself, as is self-evident. Man, throughout the countless eternities of progressive unfoldings, can never reach the intraplane, or can never enter mentally within the vestibule which leads the temple where dwelleth Allah, God, power, and S. For the simple reason that being composed of the outflowings of deity, and that, too, in their lowest form, is followed, and here is the new philosophical truth, that man's proclivities, tendencies, and aspirations will be forever, not to God, but to the outflowing attributes, powers, and essences that proceed from which God enrays. Intraplane is a term signifying the inmost essence of spirit. In man's progressive unfoldings, there are varied in various degrees of excellence, refinement, enjoyment, power, and capacity, human, spiritual, angelic, celestial, seraphic, intra, each a discrete remove above the other. The Adonic plane of being is that point of progression which man reaches on his upward journey, which all his powers, capacities, qualities, essence, and attributes coalesce, and mind becomes a unitary kingdom, instead of confederacy of faculties governed by a master principle, or king faculty. And is that point where man ceases to be moved by material essences, forces, and powers, lose his attractions for matter and outgrowth of matter, and commences the movement on the outer plane of the universe, and describes an angle with his previous progressions, and begins to develop the deific qualities which have thereunto lain dormant within the innermost recesses of the secret soul.